The frozen world of Miriala 7 was nothing but ice wind and death. For over a year, human forces had struggled to conquer it, not because of its strategic value, but because of what lay hidden deep beneath its crust, the remnants of a vanished civilization and the energy it left behind. Captain Dorian Voss surveyed the aftermath of the latest skirmish. His black exosuit, plated with frostbitten alloy and embedded with dim blue lights, made him look like a walking monument to war. All around him, the snow was no longer white. Crimson and cobalt blood soaked the drifts where bodies, both human and Mirialan, lay broken and silent. "Perimeter secure, sir," came Lieutenant Harker's voice through the comms. "We've got one survivor." Voss turned slowly toward the coordinates pinged on his HUD. There, half buried in the snow, was a female Mirialan warrior. Her lavender skin was bruised and battered, silver hair dangling from a half-undone war braid. She kneeled on one knee, her ornate curved blades sunk into the ice to keep her upright. Even from a distance, Voss could sense her pride was intact, though her body was giving up. As he approached, the bitter wind howled between them, and the hum of his plasma rifle built steadily. She lifted her chin. "Don't kill me, Terran," she said, her voice trembling, not from cold but from resolve. I will warm your sleeping chamber if you spare me." Voss blinked. Out of the 100 ways prisoners had begged for mercy in his career, this one was new. "What did you say?" he asked, lowering his visor. Her gaze didn't waver. "Your people are winning. Mine are dying. This is tradition. I surrender as one might to a victor to ensure survival. I am Calara Vena, daughter of General Maltran Vena. Your father," Voss said slowly, "is the one directing planetary resistance." Calara gave a bitter smile. "He sent my unit to die as a decoy so he could escape." She coughed, a speckle of violet blood staining her lips. "So no, I owe him nothing." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Voss didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't fire either. His mind raced, not with lust, not with cruelty, but with strategy. If she was telling the truth, this warrior wasn't just an asset, she was the daughter of the enemy's mastermind. She could be the key to ending the war. "Stand up," he ordered. She struggled, and for a moment he thought she'd collapse. But she gritted her teeth, drew herself up using the sword, and then, in a gesture of profound symbolism, offered the hilt to him. "My life is yours," she said. "You may use it for your cause, or not. But I am done fighting you." Voss took the sword. It was heavier than it looked, made of a strange black metal that shimmered faintly. "I'm Captain Voss," he replied. "And if what you say is true, you're not dying here today." Before she could answer, Lieutenant Harker arrived with 2 soldiers in tow, weapons raised. "Sir orders." "She's coming with us," Voss replied without hesitation. "She may have information, possibly the kind that ends this war." Harker hesitated. "Command's not going to like this." Voss glanced at the lieutenant. "Then I'll deal with command. Prep the evac." Calara swayed slightly, the last of her adrenaline fading. "Don't think I spared you for what you offered," Voss added quieter. "That's not how humans do things." She met his eyes. "Then what do you want from me?" answers. "And maybe peace." She looked at him, then not as a conqueror, not as a killer, but as something else. Something she couldn't quite name. The interior of the evac shuttle was dim and swaying, its high stabilizers compensating for the blizzard outside. Captain Dorian Voss sat across from his unexpected passenger, arms crossed, eyes unblinking. The hum of the ship's systems offered the only real sound besides the windstorm buffeting the outer hull. Calara Vena, still bruised and bound, sat opposite him, restrained not just by glowing cuffs, but by a silence thick with meaning. Her lavender skin shimmered with cold sweat, clearly uncomfortable in the shuttle's warm, human-centric climate. "You're overheating," Voss noted, his voice almost clinical. "I'm adjusting," she replied, though she wasn't. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Beads of moisture had formed along her neck and brow. "Our bodies are not attuned to your warmth. Then why offer to share it?" A flicker of color, not quite a blush, rose on her cheeks. "I assumed you knew. Among Marialans, heat is sacred, reserved for bonds between comrades, between lovers. Offering it is symbolic." Voss leaned forward, curious now. "Symbolic of what? Surrender? Trust? A desire not to die, but to be repurposed," she said slowly. "It's not shameful. It's ritual. A warrior defeated but still useful offers warmth. The victor may accept or not. He raised an eyebrow. So it wasn't desperation. Oh, it was. But not just that. There's honor in surviving, even if it means kneeling. She met his gaze squarely. For a moment, Voss said nothing. Her tone, her posture, there was no seduction here. No calculated manipulation. She was simply explaining a truth he'd never imagined. You might find that offer controversial among my people. You had already spared me, she said. That alone breaks your customs, doesn't it? He smirked slightly. Yeah, it does. Back at Outpost Sigma, the Terran stronghold glowed like a metallic wound on the white landscape. The base was built to resist Mirialis 7's unforgiving storms. Domed shields hummed with energy, fending off sleet and snow. Automated turrets swiveled at intervals. It was secure but not welcoming. When they landed, Voss gave quick orders. Take her to MedLab 3. Scan for internal injuries, implants, anything that shouldn't be there. Then place her in Housing Unit C-17. C-17, Lieutenant Harker echoed, puzzled. That's not a detention cell. She's not a standard prisoner. Harker blinked but didn't push it. Yes, sir. As they led Kalira away, Voss walked beside her, lowering his voice. Try not to provoke anyone. You're the first Mirialan most of them have ever seen alive. She gave him a faint smile. I rarely provoke. I just exist. That night, reports flooded in from the intelligence division. A recent scan of the Eastern Defense Ridge coordinates Kalira had offhandedly mentioned confirmed major Mirialan withdrawal. The war front was shifting. The next morning, Voss returned to her temporary room. It was modest, a bunk, a view of the snowstorm through reinforced glass, and a locked panel for basic amenities. Kalira was seated cross-legged on the floor, clad in a gray Terran-issued jumpsuit, her long silver hair tied loosely behind her. You were right, he said. About the defense ridge. I often am, she replied without looking up. He stepped closer. So let's talk about what you want. She raised her eyes slowly, their blue depths strangely calm. You know what I want? To live, to see my people survive, and maybe to stop this before we lose everything. You're suggesting a truce. I'm suggesting leverage, she corrected. My father will never negotiate, but I can offer you intelligence that might allow you to force the issue. Voss crossed his arms. What's in it for you? She smiled. You already gave me my life. Now I want to see if it's worth something. A few hours later, Voss stood in front of General Marion Trask, the commander of Terran forces on Miralis 7. Her uniform was sharp, her eyes sharper. You want to protect an alien asset in non-detention housing, Trask asked flatly. She's the daughter of General Vena. She gave us the correct coordinates for a retreat route. That's not nothing. She also offered to crawl into your bunk. Don't tell me that doesn't factor in. Voss didn't blink. It doesn't. I'm not interested in her that way. Trask gave a quiet, humph. Be careful, Captain. The last thing I need is for one of my officers to be compromised because of some warrior poet syndrome. She's an intelligence asset, and she's also a wild card, Trask countered. I'll allow her quarters, but if she feeds you misinformation or so much as sneezes without permission, I'll have her shipped to the interrogation ward. Understood, Voss nodded. Understood. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. That night, Voss returned to C-17 with a tablet loaded with field maps and encrypted communications. Kalira accepted it without speaking. As he turned to leave, she spoke quietly. You could have let me die. You still could. I don't gain anything from your death. Then what do you gain from my life? Voss hesitated at the door. Maybe something neither side has yet. Perspective. He left before she could answer. Inside her room, Kalira watched the swirling snow outside the window, remembering the moment she knelt in blood and ice before the human who hadn't killed her. Maybe there was more to this man than armor and orders. Maybe this was how peace began, not with treaties, but with questions. Mirialis 7, like most planets locked in a permanent winter, was a world of silence. Even deep inside the fortified halls of Outpost Sigma, the snow made its presence known, pressing against glass, whispering against steel, and reminding every soul within the base that outside the dome, survival was not guaranteed. Captain Dorian Voss stared at the encrypted message hovering above his data tablet. Satellite scans confirm anomalous energy signatures beneath Sector Delta 9. Local resistance activity at minimum. Possible vault structure detected beneath surface. He leaned back in his chair. Sector Delta 9 was exactly where Kalira had said her father might have relocated. She hadn't given coordinates, only a warning. If my father moved, he wouldn't go underground unless he was hiding something ancient. Voss activated the base's comm system. Lieutenant Harker, he said. Prep recon drones for Delta 9. No atmospheric entry. I want subsurface scans only. Copy that, Captain. Going dark. Meanwhile, across the compound, Kalira Vena was adapting. The Terran standard jumpsuit didn't fit her body well. It was cut for humans, but she bore the discomfort silently. What bothered her more were the stairs. Every corridor, every medical bay, every mess hall she passed was filled with the same silent appraisal from wary human eyes. No one said anything aloud, but she could feel it. To them, she was the enemy, a killer, a traitor, or worse, some exotic political tool brought in for manipulation. Only one person looked at her differently, and she wasn't sure if that was more comforting or more dangerous. That night, her door slid open again. No announcement, no armed escort, just Voss carrying a metal case. I brought something, he said, setting it on the desk. Kalira rose from her bed cautious. A weapon, something rarer. He opened the case, revealing a slender blade, not a Terran model, but Mirialan. Her blade, I had it cleaned and scanned. No tech, just steel. Thought you might feel better with it around. Kalira stared. You returned my sword. I figured if you'd wanted to kill me, you would have already tried. She stepped forward and lifted the blade slowly. It felt like home. Her hands naturally found the balance, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. This means more to me than you understand, she said softly. I'm starting to understand more than I used to. Their eyes met again. This time no tension, no fear, just something unspoken. An unease that wasn't dangerous, just unfamiliar. Why are you doing this, Voss? She asked. You don't trust me. No, he replied honestly, but I think I should. Hours later in the war room, General Trask reviewed drone data with a mix of fascination and dread. The energy patterns below Delta 9 didn't match anything in the Terran archives. They pulsed like living things. Any sign of Mirialan installation, she asked. Not yet. But there are signs of excavation. This isn't just a hideout, it's a dig site. Voss entered mid-briefing. We need to mobilize a quiet team. Trask raised an eyebrow. And send them where exactly? Into a possibly unstable alien vault with unknown energy signatures? Sounds like a trap. Maybe. But if Kalira's intel is right, we're not the only ones interested in what's under the ice. Trask hesitated. You still believe her? She's given us nothing false. And now she's talking about the old flame, some ancient energy her people once worshipped. Sounds a hell of a lot like what we just found. And you think she'll give us more? Only if we treat her like more than a hostage. Trask narrowed her eyes. Are you getting too close to this asset? Captain Voss met her gaze evenly. No closer than I need to be to win this war. Later that night, as the base settled into an uneasy sleep cycle, Voss sat with Kalira in her quarters, less like jailer and prisoner, more like two uneasy diplomats. There's something you're not telling me, he said. She looked down at her hands. I've been hesitant. Not because I'm hiding things, but because what I know might shift your whole war. He leaned forward, then shifted. She took a breath. My father discovered something beneath the ice years ago. Not technology, not a weapon, a structure, alien older than our oldest cities. We call it the Shard Heart. Let me guess, it pulses with weird energy. It does more than that. It reacts to thought, to intention. Voss stared. Psycho-reactive tech? I don't know your words, but yes, our scientists thought it was inert. But after contact with human excavation teams, it started waking up. So this war is about who gets to claim what's buried, she finished. But there's more. Something strange is happening in our ranks. Officers disappearing, orders being countermanded. And my father, he's not the same. It's like something whispers to him through the ice. Voss's blood ran cold. You think the artifact is affecting him? I think something is using him. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Voss spoke. Then maybe it's not just our war anymore. Maybe we're all on borrowed time. Kalira nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't surrender because I was afraid to die. I surrendered because I think I know what's coming, and I want to be on the side that survives it. A storm swept across Mirialis 7, but it wasn't weather that worried Captain Dorian Voss. He stood at the edge of the hangar bay watching the loading of Recon Team Echo into a light transport. They were equipped with stealth gear, seismic readers, and short-range pulse rifles standard for subsurface expeditions. But what they were walking into was anything but standard. You're sure about this? Asked Lieutenant Harker, standing at Voss's side. No, Voss replied. But if Kalira's right, that site isn't just another buried ruin, it's waking up. And if she's wrong, then we dig up some ice and waste half a day. I'll take that gamble. Harker hesitated. You know the brass thinks she's playing you. Voss glanced sideways. The brass can keep thinking. Down below, Kalira Vena watched the shuttle prepare for launch from the safety of her quarters. She hadn't asked for updates, but she didn't need to. The atmosphere in the base had shifted tighter, more focused, like a drawn bowstring. The humans were moving. Good. She turned to face her reflection in the window. Her lavender skin looked even paler under the artificial light. The gray jumpsuit hung loose on her frame. She was changing not physically but mentally, migrating between two identities, warrior and something else. Something more dangerous. She closed her eyes and whispered a phrase in the old tongue. The ice remembers, and it listens. 12 hours later, chaos reigned in the command center. Feeds down barked a tech. Echo Team's vitals just went red, 4 offline, 1 erratic. They breached the vault, said General Trask, jaw tight. Then the signal cut. No audio, no visual. Just static. Voss leaned over the terminal, watching the data flicker. There's something jamming us, from underground. Or something interfering, muttered Harker. Maybe Kalira was right. Maybe this place doesn't want us in there. Trask snapped her fingers. Prep Alpha Squad, immediate extraction. Voss stepped forward. Send me. Trask blinked. You're not field cleared. I've seen the terrain. I've read her files. If this structure really is reactive to thought or emotion, you need someone who understands both human and Mirialan psychology. And you think you qualify? I've spent every damn night trying to understand her people. I'm the closest thing we've got to a translator. Trask stared at him, then nodded once. Fine, but you take her with you? Voss raised an eyebrow. Excuse me, if this thing is reacting to Mirialans, then I want one there. She goes or you don't. Kalira's reaction was immediate. You want me to walk into a vault that just killed 4 humans? Voss folded his arms. Think of it another way, this might be your only chance to prove everything you've said is true. She sighed. Or die trying. He stepped closer. You were right about Delta 9. You were right about your father being influenced. Help me be right about you. She stared at him a long moment, then gave a wry smile. Fine, but I choose the route. Deal. They departed at dusk. The transport skimmed low across the ice, silent but swift. Inside, Voss, Kalira, and 5 armored Terran soldiers sat in tense quiet. No one spoke to her, though she caught their sideways glances. Their fear, their judgment. She didn't care. Let them stare. Let them see who she was when it mattered most. When they landed, the Shard Heart Vault loomed before them, carved into the base of a massive glacier. The entrance was jagged, as though the ice had torn itself open. The snow around it had melted into a slush, exposing ancient obsidian-like stone, etched with alien glyphs. Voss held up a scanning wand. No immediate hostiles. Temperature inside is rising. Kalira stepped ahead. It senses us. Voss gave her a sharp look. What do you mean this place is alive, Voss? Not in the way your sensors detect. It's listening, feeling, maybe even judging. He glanced back at the squad. Stay sharp. Don't touch anything unless I say. They descended. Inside, the tunnel turned into polished corridors that defied physics. Angles didn't line up. Space curved wrong. At one point, a soldier swore he saw his own reflection move independently in the wall. What is this place? Harker muttered. Kalira's voice echoed eerily. A memory vault. My ancestors believed the Shard Heart could store not just energy, but thought. It's not a machine. It's a mind. They reached a large chamber. In the center, a floating crystal 6 meters tall, shaped like a jagged spear of light and darkness. Pulses of energy ran through its core, blue and gold flickering like heartbeats. Voss stared awestruck. It was beautiful and terrifying. Then the crystal flared. Every soldier dropped to one knee, clutching their helmets, except Kalira. She stepped forward calmly, hands outstretched. "Let it see you," she whispered to Voss. He hesitated, then followed. The instant he approached, the core images slammed into his skull, memories, not his own. Battles, stars, a planet torn by war. Not Mirialis 7. Somewhere older, forgotten. He stumbled back, panting. "It's showing you the truth," Kalira said. "The truth you're not ready for." Voss wiped sweat from his brow. "What is this? What's it want?" Kalira turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. "It wants harmony. It wants us to stop repeating the past." Suddenly, a voice cut in. "Step away from the artifact." Voss and Kalira turned slowly. Colonel Garen Miles, a Terran intelligence officer known for operating in the shadows, stood at the entrance to the chamber, flanked by armored troops, not bearing standard base insignia. Miles, Voss growled. "What the hell are you doing here securing the Shard Heart?" Miles said coldly. "Command doesn't need diplomacy. It needs weapons. And this one's powerful enough to win the war, and every war after it." He raised a compact pulse pistol. "You're relieved of duty, Captain." Kalira stepped between them. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. That thing doesn't want to be used." Miles sneered. "Good thing we didn't ask its opinion." As he fired, the crystal pulsed violently, blasting everyone backward with a wave of force. Screams, metal tearing, lights flickering. When the energy faded, Miles was unconscious, and 2 of his troops lay twitching on the floor. The Shard Heart had defended itself. Voss looked at Kalira, who was bleeding from her temple, but standing. "You okay?" She nodded. It knew he would try. They stared at the crystal, now softly humming again. "I think," Voss whispered, "it's choosing sides." Outpost Sigma. Command Center news of the incident at the Shard Heart Vault arrived in encrypted bursts. Unknown pulse event. 2 operatives down. Vault partially collapsed. Artifact stable. Colonel Miles incapacitated. Captain Voss alive. No enemy resistance encountered. Artifact may be sentient. General Marion Trask read the reports in grim silence, her fingers tapping the side of her datapad. Around her, staff scrambled to verify information, but she already understood what the messages implied. This wasn't just about military strategy anymore. This was about control, and someone, maybe something, had decided that Terran High Command no longer deserved it. Back at the vault, dust and silence reigned. The soldiers who survived Miles' failed takeover were bound and unconscious. Voss sat against the crystalline wall, watching the Shard Heart pulse steadily. Its rhythm had stabilized, no longer reacting violently, but still very much alive. Kalira stood a few feet away, her silver hair, tangled blood dried on her temple. She stared at the artifact with something approaching reverence and fear. "I think it's watching us," Voss said quietly. "It's been watching since the first Terran mining team cracked open the ice," she replied. "But you're the first it didn't reject." Voss shook his head. "I'm not special." "You are," she countered, "or it wouldn't have let you see." They exited the vault hours later, escorting the prisoners and carrying the injured. The storm had broken sunlight gleaming off the snowfields in a way that almost seemed symbolic. When they returned to Outpost Sigma, Trask was waiting. She listened to Voss's report in full, asked 2 questions, and then dismissed the room. "You've made quite the mess, Captain. I didn't fire the shot, but you brought an alien into our operations. You disobeyed containment orders. You exposed one of the most dangerous discoveries in known space to a non-human, and now Command wants answers." Voss folded his arms. "So give them mine. I'll take the heat." Trask leaned forward. "Oh, you will. But that's not all." She tapped her desk. A hologram flared to life, showing classified footage from other parts of the sector. Rogue squads intercepted communication spikes in energy matching the vault's resonance. "It's not just Mirialis anymore," she said. "Something's waking up across multiple worlds." Voss swallowed. "The Shard Heart isn't unique." Trask nodded. "And that makes this war seem smaller." That night, Voss found Kalira sitting near one of the base's outer observation decks. She stared out at the wasteland, face lit by the faint auroras that danced above the ice. "You risked your life today," he said, stepping up beside her. "I did," she admitted, "for people who still don't trust you." "I'm used to that." She looked up at him. "But you trusted me, and I trust you." Voss watched the snow swirl past. "So what do we do now?" "We stop letting others make choices for us." She turned to face him fully. "Your command sees me as a tool. My people see you as a monster. But we've seen the truth that something older and stronger than both our species is steering this conflict. And it wants to be heard." She nodded. "Then we give it a voice." 3 days later, General Trask stood before the Joint Terran Council via secure holocom. The faces of military brass, political delegates, and intelligence directors flickered in three-dimensional light. "I am recommending a full ceasefire across the Mirialis campaign zone," she said, "until we better understand the Shard Heart network." The room erupted in protest. "Preposterous. They're killing our soldiers daily. We can't trust alien relics to determine strategic command." Trask waited for the noise to die down. "I'm also placing Colonel Miles under tribunal review for unauthorized engagement and treasonous misuse of a classified artifact." More silence. "And what of Captain Voss?" one admiral asked. "He defied protocol and collaborated with an enemy combatant." "He did," Trask replied. "And because of him, we now know there are multiple Shard Hearts, possibly a galaxy-spanning system of sentient structures buried beneath colonial sectors." The admiral narrowed his eyes. "So you're promoting him, I'm promoting results," Trask said flatly, and Voss delivered them. That evening, as stars glimmered above the base's icy dome, Kalira and Voss met again in his quarters. She had been given limited access to the base. No more restraints, no more escorts. Just mutual suspicion, slowly eroding into curiosity. "You're not just a soldier anymore," she said. "You're becoming something more." Voss chuckled. "Diplomat. Maybe a bridge." They sat together in silence for a while, watching distant auroras shift colors beyond the glass. "There's still more I haven't told you," she said eventually. He looked at her. "Then tell me." She unzipped a small compartment of her jumpsuit, pulling out a tiny shard of crystal. Pale, barely pulsing. It looked like a piece of the vault core, but smaller, personalized. "This was embedded in my spine when I was a child," she said. "Part of an old Mirialan ritual. No one knew what it did. Until now. What is it, a key? Or a receiver? Maybe both. And it connects to the Shard Heart, to something beyond even that. A network, a memory, something that knows what's coming and is trying to warn us." Voss stared at the crystal, then at her. "Then we follow it." Together he nodded. "All the way. Sector K9, Deep Field Ice Core." 2 weeks later, the cold was no longer just a backdrop to war, it was a language. And now finally both sides were listening. Captain Dorian Voss crouched beneath the ridge of a fractured glacial shelf, his thermal suit layered over modified scout armor. Next to him, Kalira Vena adjusted her scanning gauntlet, the glowing shard embedded in her palm, pulsing more rapidly with every meter they descended. Ahead of them, the ice trembled. "There's something beneath the rift," she said, voice steady despite the elevation and pressure. "This one is stronger than the last." Voss tapped the side of his helmet, switching to wideband comms. "Recon 6 confirms seismic shift at coordinates Kilo 9 or Delta." A brief pause, then confirmed. "Ground's humming." "Sir?" "It's not natural." Voss glanced at Kalira. "How many of these vaults do you think there are?" She looked down at the ice. "Too many, and not enough time." The Terran Mirialan Joint Task Pact was barely 2 weeks old, an unprecedented fragile ceasefire enforced by uneasy collaboration and mutual terror at what the Shard Hearts implied. No treaties, no press conferences, just whispered acknowledgments that maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't at the top of the evolutionary food chain anymore. And maybe the Mirialans weren't the original owners of their world after all. Inside the interim operations tent, a pair of Terran and Mirialan analysts debated in front of a holographic map of Mirialis 7. "The ice cap overlays a lattice of energy veins," said one human tech, tracing the glowing grid lines across the map. "Each vault sits at a major nexus. Someone or something built a global network. The lattice matches old Mirialan myths. A pale-skinned alien woman added, her face illuminated by the blue light. Legends spoke of veins of thought. We assumed they were metaphorical. They're not. Voss and Kalira entered the command tent hours later. A low murmur swept the room as both sides acknowledged the unlikely pair, a human war hero and an alien general's daughter now operating as co-leads of the expedition. Drill team uncovered something, said Harker, pulling up a new image on the display. An underground corridor. Angular, massive. Not carved, but grown like crystalline branches twisting through the bedrock. And at the far end, a door. 5 hours later, the team descended through the newly cut access tunnel. Voss led. Kalira followed close behind. The remaining team members, 2 humans, 2 Marylands, kept a respectful distance, rifles lowered, but ready. They reached the door. It wasn't made of any material either side recognized. It shimmered like liquid metal fused with ice, and it was humming low, rhythmic, like a deep sleeping breath. Kalira stepped forward and raised her hand. The shard in her palm began to glow. "Wait," Voss said. "What if it's not ready?" She glanced at him. "It's not about readiness. It's about recognition." She placed her palm flat against the surface. A ripple of light spread across the door. Then silence, and it opened. Beyond the threshold was a chamber of stars. That's the only way Voss could describe it. The ceiling arched so high it disappeared into darkness. Lights floated in midair, tiny orbs that moved when they moved, watching. In the center of the chamber hovered another crystal. But unlike the shard heart at Delta 9, this one was black. Dead. "I don't understand," whispered Kalira. "It's dormant." Voss stepped closer, or afraid. Then the room shifted. It wasn't the walls, it was reality itself. The air shimmered, space folded, and suddenly they were somewhere else. A projection, a memory Voss couldn't tell. Around them, images played, a civilization of light and thought building, vaults across hundreds of worlds. Then a rupture, a betrayal, war, fire, collapse, then nothing. The final image lingered, a planet being buried in ice. The room returned. Voss staggered. "Did you see it?" Kalira nodded, eyes wide. The architects, the what my people called them, myths, beings of order and intelligence. We thought they were gods. They were just predecessors. Voss exhaled. "They buried this world to protect what remained, and now we're waking it up," she whispered. Piece by piece, back at the base camp, the new vault discovery sent waves across the entire Terran Maryland theater. All at once, old enemies were sharing data. Scientists spoke in hushed tones, strategists redrew maps, and a question lingered over every conversation: were the architects gone or just sleeping? That night in a field tent lined with dim lights and hastily added insulation, Voss and Kalira shared their first real moment of peace in weeks. She sat cross-legged on a cot, absently rotating the shard in her hand. "Do you ever wonder," she said, "if we were never supposed to survive this long?" Voss sat across from her. "You mean evolution was an accident?" "No, I mean maybe this war, your side, my side, was never ours to begin with. Maybe we're just a footnote in someone else's story." He leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time we write our own." She looked up, a slow, thoughtful smile forming. "Together, always." Suddenly, alarms blared from the base perimeter. Voss was on his feet in seconds. Outside, under the shimmering sky, a burning trail cut through the atmosphere. A ship, Noah pod, falling fast from low orbit. "Is that one of ours?" a tech shouted. Voss's gut clenched. "No, and it's coming down fast." As the team scrambled into alert positions, Kalira turned to Voss. "The architects might not be sleeping after all. Murialis 7, perimeter zone D3, 0300 hours. Snow howled across the plains, whipped into spirals by the wind turbines bordering the outpost. Through this cold darkness, the sky cracked open with a streak of burning light, illuminating the ice fields in flashes of orange and blue. The impact was seismic. The shockwave knocked out half the perimeter sensors. The object, too small to be a ship, too large for standard escape pods, plunged into the glacier's edge, vanishing beneath a blizzard of debris. Inside the operations center, chaos erupted. Trajectory confirms non-Terran design. No heat sigs inside, but structure intact. Possibly dormant or cloaked. Captain Dorian Voss and Kalira Vena stood side by side watching the overhead drone feed. The pod, or whatever it was, had cratered a shallow impact site just kilometers from the latest vault. Unlike Mirialan or Terran craft, it was organic in shape. Smooth, uneven, designed not with engineering logic but with aesthetic intent, like a piece of alien art that fell from the sky. "It's not from your people," Voss said. Kalira shook her head slowly. "Or yours. Then we're looking at a third player." She inhaled deeply. "No, we're looking at the first." The team that approached the crash site included mixed specialists, Terran engineers, Mirialan crypto-linguists, and combat-ready personnel from both sides. Protocol Greyfire was activated first contact response for unknown technological entities. A snowstorm whipped around them as they approached the crater. The object was still warm, not from fire but from residual energy humming softly across its curved surface. "No visible hatch," said a Terran tech. "Maybe it doesn't need one," Kalira murmured. Then without warning, the structure reacted. A vertical seam appeared, splitting down the center like an eyelid blinking open. Cold white light spilled out. Everyone raised weapons. No one fired. From the light, something stepped forward. It was humanoid. Tall, elegant. Clad in an exosuit of unknown design, its surface shimmering with a constantly shifting texture, metal one moment, glass the next. Its face was obscured by a helm, but the eyes glowed with layered colors, not just blue or gold, but frequencies the brain struggled to interpret. Then it spoke, not with words, not with sound, but directly into their minds. "So, you have found the fractures, the keys. Awaken." Voss stumbled backward, grabbing his temple. Kalira gasped, clutching her chest. Others fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the psychic resonance. And then it stopped. Only Voss and Kalira remained standing. "You're an architect," Kalira said. "Not a question, a fact." The being tilted its head, not in confirmation, not in denial. "I am Echo, one of many, a fragment sent to monitor the inevitable." "What inevitable?" Voss asked. "Collapse. You are awakening forces you cannot yet contain. The vaults were sealed for a reason." "Arwah cannot, but they're alive," Voss argued. "They react. They remember. They want to help. They want to be free. That is not the same as help." Kalira stepped forward. "Then why are you here? To deliver a choice." The being lifted its arm. A projection burst into existence, hovering in the frozen air. It showed Mirialis from orbit, but not as it was, as it would be, a timeline of cascading consequences. Shard hearts awakening, energy fields destabilizing, planets cracking, civilizations burning. Each vault you activate links the network closer to full reintegration. "But some of what sleeps must not wake," Kalira whispered. "It's not a defense system. It's a containment field." "Correct. And your species, both of them, are the keys now." Voss frowned. "Then what's the choice?" "End the awakening now. Seal the fractures. Remain as you are, divided, surviving in the cold. Or unlock the last vault, unite the network, and face what lies at its core. Silence. Only win." Later in the debriefing chamber, tension was so thick it could have crushed steel. The alien being Echo remained confined to an isolated chamber of reinforced energy fields monitored constantly. It had not spoken again, nor had it moved. But every second it existed, the balance of power across human and Mirialan territories shifted. Some wanted to destroy it, some wanted to worship it, some just wanted to survive it. Kalira sat with Voss in the war room long after everyone else had left. "What would your people do?" she asked. "Divide, debate, vote, sabotage each other." "Wait too long," she laughed bitterly. "Ours too, which is why we have to decide before they do." Her smile faded. "You're talking about the final vault, the core." He nodded. "Echo showed us the future, but that doesn't mean it's unchangeable or survivable. Maybe not. But if we walk away now, we leave this to someone else." She stood and walked to the holographic map showing vault activity across the planet. "We go together, always." She reached toward the glowing point marked core site, unknown depth, and touched it. The map shifted, The coordinates filled in, and the countdown began. Far beneath the planet across networks older than language, the shard hearts pulsed once. Not in defiance, not in rage, but in recognition. Mirialis 7, Core Vault Descent Site. 4 days later, the drilling had taken 92 hours. The silence that followed felt louder. Below the surface, deeper than any human or Mirialan expedition had gone, a hollow signature had been discovered. Not a chamber, not a mine, a cavity inside the planet itself. And in the middle of it, a pulse, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. A joint expedition was formed comprised of hand-picked veterans, engineers, scientists, and diplomats. But only 2 were authorized to go all the way to the core: Captain Dorian Voss and Kalira Vena, the only 2 beings who had survived a Shard Heart's awakening, the only 2 beings who the Shard Hearts had chosen. Their descent capsule was built from both Terran alloys and Mirialan biotech. It hummed with energy, reinforced with vault crystal. It could survive almost anything. But neither of them were sure they could. Inside the capsule, Voss stared at the timer. Descent, T-3 minutes. You ready? He asked. Kalira didn't look at him. No, but I'm going anyway. Same. The pod dropped. Hours later, they emerged into the core vault. There were no walls, no floor. Only a spherical chamber of infinite reflections suspended in glowing lattices of crystalline threads that connected at a single point in the center, a floating orb black as night rimmed in molten gold. The final shard heart. And it was aware. They stepped forward, slowly, cautiously. Their presence triggered something, a resonance. Memories unfolded, projected in midair. The birth of the shard hearts. The architects seeding dozens of worlds with vaults. The rise of 2 empires, Terran and Mirialan. And the moment when the vaults were sealed, not to protect themselves, but to protect us from what they had once contained. Then came a vision neither of them expected. Mirialis burning, but not from war, from within. A corruption dark-spined and moving like thought turned hostile, rising from the core. Something inside the shard heart was pressing against its prison. Voss whispered, "It's not just a power source." Kalira finished the thought, "It's a cage." Then the shard heart spoke. Its voice was plural. Thousands of overlapping whispers woven into one. You have come seeking unity. You carry both halves of a broken world. But within me lies the first fault, the origin of the war that broke the stars. Release me, or seal me forever. The room darkened. A final choice was presented. A pedestal rose between them, displaying 2 shards, one blue, one gold. Voss stepped toward the blue, Kalira toward the gold. 2 shards, 2 species, 2 paths. Together, Voss said. Always, Kalira replied. They reached out. When the shards touched, the core reacted. Not violently, not explosively, but with understanding. A pulse, gentle, warm, radiated from the orb, spreading through the vault like a breath finally exhaled after eons. Across Mirialis, the shard hearts responded, not with energy weapons, but with light. Skies cleared, storms calmed, and in dozens of labs, machines, and temples, both Terran and Mirialan eyes widened as their instruments blinked out, and then synchronized. At the surface, General Trask and the Council watched the feed as vault readings across the planet aligned. In the isolation chamber, Echo, the alien visitor, finally moved. It looked up, spoke one final message. They chose balance. It has begun. And then it vanished, leaving behind only an empty suit and silence. Back in the core, Voss and Kalira stood hand in hand as the orb slowly dimmed. Was that it? She asked softly. No, Voss said. It's the beginning. 6 months later, New Concord Station orbiting Mirialis 7. A joint alliance had formed. Not a government, not yet, but a promise. Vault technology was being studied, not exploited. Peace had stabilized. Exploration had resumed with caution. But more importantly, humans and Mirialans now shared a language that didn't exist before trust. Voss stood on the viewing deck, watching freighters drift between orbit and planet. Kalira entered quietly, wearing a new uniform, dark silver embroidered with Terran and Mirialan sigils. Council just ratified the final accord, she said. Equal access, joint research, a long way from kill on sight. He smiled. We should get married. She blinked. Excuse me. You're already warming my quarters, he shrugged. Might as well make it official. She stared at him for a long beat, then laughed, a full, deep sound that echoed through the chamber. You still don't understand our rituals. No, he said, stepping close. But I'm willing to keep learning. She leaned into him. You'd better. Below, far beneath the ice, the shard heart slept. Not dormant, not dead, but at peace for now, waiting for the next age, the next question, the next choice. The frozen world of Mirialis 7 was nothing but ice wind and death. For over a year, human forces had struggled to conquer it, not because of its strategic value, but because of what lay hidden deep beneath its crust, the remnants of a vanished civilization and the energy it left behind. Captain Dorian Voss surveyed the aftermath of the latest skirmish. His black exosuit, plated with frostbitten alloy and embedded with dim blue lights, made him look like a walking monument to war. All around him, the snow was no longer white. Crimson and cobalt blood soaked the drifts where bodies both human and Mirialan lay broken and silent. Perimeter secure, sir, came Lieutenant Harker's voice through the comms. We've got one survivor. Voss turned slowly toward the coordinates pinged on his HUD. There, half buried in the snow, was a female Mirialan warrior. Her lavender skin was bruised and battered, silver hair dangling from a half-undone war braid. She kneeled on one knee, her ornate curved blades sunk into the ice to keep her upright. Even from a distance, Voss could sense her pride was intact, though her body was giving up. As he approached, the bitter wind howled between them, and the hum of his plasma rifle built steadily. She lifted her chin. Don't kill me, Terran, she said, her voice trembling, not from cold but from resolve. I will warm your sleeping chamber if you spare me. Voss blinked. Out of the 100 ways prisoners had begged for mercy in his career, this one was new. What did you say, he asked, lowering his visor. Her gaze didn't waver. Your people are winning. Mine are dying. This is tradition. I surrender as one might to a victor to ensure survival. I am Calera Vena, daughter of General Maltran Vena. Your father, Voss said slowly, is the one directing planetary resistance. Calera gave a bitter smile. He sent my unit to die as a decoy so he could escape. She coughed, a speckle of violet blood staining her lips. So no, I owe him nothing. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Voss didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't fire either. His mind raced, not with lust, not with cruelty, but with strategy. If she was telling the truth, this warrior wasn't just an asset, she was the daughter of the enemy's mastermind. She could be the key to ending the war. Stand up, he ordered. She struggled, and for a moment he thought she'd collapse. But she gritted her teeth, drew herself up using the sword, and then, in a gesture of profound symbolism, offered the hilt to him. My life is yours, she said. You may use it for your cause, or not. But I am done fighting you. Voss took the sword. It was heavier than it looked, made of a strange black metal that shimmered faintly. I'm Captain Voss, he replied. And if what you say is true, you're not dying here today. Before she could answer, Lieutenant Harker arrived with 2 soldiers in tow. Weapons raised. Sir orders. She's coming with us, Voss replied without hesitation. She may have information, possibly the kind that ends this war. Harker hesitated. Command's not going to like this. Voss glanced at the lieutenant. Then I'll deal with command. Prep the evac. Calera swayed slightly, the last of her adrenaline fading. Don't think I spared you for what you offered, Voss added quieter. That's not how humans do things. She met his eyes. Then what do you want from me, answers. And maybe peace. She looked at him, then not as a conqueror, not as a killer, but as something else. Something she couldn't quite name. The interior of the evac shuttle was dim and swaying, its size stabilizers compensating for the blizzard outside. Captain Dorian Voss sat across from his unexpected passenger, arms crossed, eyes unblinking. The hum of the ship's systems offered the only real sound besides the windstorm buffeting the outer hull. Calera Vena, still bruised and bound, sat opposite him, restrained not just by glowing cuffs, but by a silence thick with meaning. Her lavender skin shimmered with cold sweat, clearly uncomfortable in the shuttle's warm, human-centric climate. You're overheating, Voss noted, his voice almost clinical. I'm adjusting, she replied, though she wasn't. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Beads of moisture had formed along her neck and brow. Our bodies are not attuned to your warmth. Then why offer to share it? A flicker of color, not quite a blush, rose on her cheeks. I assumed you knew. Among Marialans, heat is sacred, reserved for bonds between comrades, between lovers. Offering it is symbolic. Voss leaned forward, curious now. Symbolic of what? Surrender, trust, a desire not to die, but to be repurposed, she said slowly. It's not shameful. It's ritual. A warrior defeated but still useful offers warmth,